Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Michelle Horth, Assistant Dean of Diversity and Inclusion, and on behalf of the Harris School of Public Policy, I'd like to welcome you to our conversation tonight. We are proud to host several events in honor of Black History Month with the simple goal of educating and elevating issues of relevance to the African American community. Our hope is that our weekly conversations continue well past Black History Month and that you create spaces and opportunities to engage in these important topics with your classmates, your coworkers, family, and the community at large. Our theme this month is the power of social movements. We started the month out with Eddie Glaude Jr. from Princeton, who helped us understand this moment in time, and we capped off last week with a conversation with Jelani Cobb from Columbia University on lessons learned from past movements that help us build on the current momentum and continue the fight for social justice. And tonight, we continue on this theme as our guests will provide perspective on the question, has the movement transcended the moment and the unique American story of race towards a greater understanding of the commonalities of humanity? We are so fortunate tonight to have two individuals who really need no introduction. I have the honor of introducing them both, but I encourage you all to read their bios to have a greater appreciation for the contributions they have and continue to make towards social justice issues. After serving almost 15 years in the Philadelphia City Council, Michael A. Nutter was elected the 98th mayor of his hometown in November 2007 and took office in January 2008. At his inaugural address, Mayor Nutter pledged to lower crime, improve educational attainment rates, make Philadelphia the greenest city in America, and attract new businesses and residents to the city. He also promised to lead an ethical and transparent government focused on providing high quality, efficient, and effective customer service. With the support of an experienced professional staff, Mayor Nutter made significant progress on every pledge. Homicides were at an almost 50-year low at the end of his tenure. High school graduation and college degree attainment rates increased significantly, and Philadelphia added hundreds of miles of bike lanes and trails and launched the first low-income friendly bike share system in America. Mayor Nutter made a commitment to strong financial stewardship, vigorously managing the city through the worst economic recession since the Great Depression. In affiliation with the National League of Cities, Mayor Nutter, along with New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu, launched Cities United, an initiative aimed at creating partnerships between cities, nonprofits, and other stakeholders to combat violence and crime among African American men and boys. He also serves on President Obama's My Brother's Keeper Advisory Council. We are also joined with Valerie Jarrett, who is the Chief Executive Officer and a member of the Board of Directors of the Barack Obama Foundation. She is also a Senior Distinguished Fellow at the University of Chicago's Law School. She is the author of the New York Times bestselling book, Finding My Voice, My Journey to the West Wing and the Path Forward, which was published in April 2019. She serves as board chairman of Civic Nation, co-chair of the United States of Women, and is a 1 Million Black Women Advisory Board member. Valerie Jarrett also serves on numerous boards, including the Ralph Lauren Corporation, Kennedy Center for Performing Arts, and Sesame Street, to name just a few. Ms. Valerie Jarrett was the senior advisor to the President Barack Obama from 2009 to 2017, making her the longest serving senior advisor in history. She also oversaw the offices of public engagement and intergovernmental affairs and chaired the White House Council on Women and Girls. Ms. Jarrett worked throughout her tenure at the White House to mobilize elected officials, businesses, and community leaders and diverse groups of advocates. She led the Obama administration's efforts to expand and strengthen access to the middle class and boost American businesses and our economy. And with that, I will happily pass the mic over to Mayor Michael Nutter and Ms. Valerie Jarrett.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, how are you?
It's so good to see you.
It is great to see you. And Michelle, thank you for that incredible intro for both of us. But it is wonderful to see you, Valerie, and thank you for agreeing to do this. I have to say, after our text exchange, it was the quickest yes I've ever gotten to anything.
Well, when have I ever said no to you? Or the university. So that's two good reasons why I would do
There
this.
you go. There you go. And the same, I would say, I never said no to you.
That is true.
So,
and I asked for harder things than this.
well, it's all good. It's all good. I hope you're safe and well.
Yes,
and
thank you.
and all the family and that young lady who continues to do great things out there.
Yes,
your daughter.
My daughter is living a good life in New York, enjoying anchoring for CNN and
Absolutely.
giving me another grandchild. And this time it's a girl. And
oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
I'm pretty happy. Well, she just mentioned it this morning on air for the first time, so I figured it's safe for me to talk about it now.
There you go. You're too young to be a grandma. I'm trying to figure out those numbers. But
you and I are pretty close to the same age. I'm just a few months ahead of you.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Well, that something Michelle said, and I hadn't thought about it this way, but something she said. I'm gonna take us back a little bit to yes, we can. Yes, we can. And I want to, I guess, kind of use that as a bit of the platform or the foundation to, 07, 08, and now, wow, 2022. You were there. I'm going to say not at the beginning, before the beginning of all of that. And President Obama helped us as a country, and I think as a world, just as a candidate and obviously successful first as president and first Black president, helped us to, I think, believe in ourselves. And that trust is being heavily tested today. President Biden comes in the aftermath of the time between President Obama and President Biden. And I think a lot of our institutions have been damaged. Public trust has been questioned. And we're in a very, very tough, challenging time. But you know about tough times because, I came in and didn't know that we were in recession. The president was running and then found out as a senator that there was a recession. And then when he put his hand up in January of 2009, we were full blown in recession. And so I want to take you back to some of that time. Obviously, you had been a public servant before, the city of Chicago. So let's talk a little bit about public service and what was it like trying to govern during those days?
Well, so let's go back to the beginning of my public service, because as you and I have talked many a time, I think that the time I spent working in local and regional government in Chicago was such an incredible training ground for me to then go to Washington for a number of reasons. First of all, I was a part of something bigger than myself. And I think that's to the Yes We Can. What resonated so deeply and profoundly around the country is that this wasn't about President Obama. It was about the potential in all of us.
Yeah.
And those early years, beginning in 1987, I started working when Mayor Harold Washington, the first Black mayor of Chicago, had just been reelected.
Yeah.
He had the same kind of ability in a city that, let's face it, has had a rather checkered racist past. To reach out to people, even if they didn't vote for him. He showed them the respect and the love and the curiosity and the interest. And working for him, and then subsequently for Mayor Daley, I learned a few things. I learned to listen, something that politicians don't always do, but that you have no choice but to do at the local level, because your constituents, right, Michael, are in your face. They know where you live. They got your phone number. I've had people
barbershop, supermarket,
store, right? Somebody slipped a note to my daughter when she was 6. Give this to your mother, and at first, it's a little off-putting, and then you realize, no, wait, that's what public service is all about. This is 24/7, and people have a right as a public servant to put a lot of demands on you. And I also learned to listen to people regardless of the decibel of their voice, because sometimes I saw people at their worst when they were fit to be tied. They show up and want to see the mayor, and they got me. And believe me, that was a consolation prize. It was my job to solve their problem. And
that's what they want.
I think I learned in those early days, and I know you certainly saw this in Philadelphia, is that most people are just, they're trying to pay their bills, have a home, send their kids to school so that they can do better. They don't want that much, but they expect the government to work for them and not against them. And they do have the right to expect to hold elected officials to a higher standard, because these are leaders. Leaders are supposed to be role models. And I think what we've experienced is kind of a rock in the stability of our democracy, honestly. And people question not just government, they question business, they devotion to religious institutions is eroding. You're seeing this moving away from all institutions, but the democracy depends on them being strong. So we can't abdicate our responsibility to make them better if we don't like them. And those are some of the lessons that I learned in local government, like the potential of ordinary people to do extraordinary things when they're willing to work together, compromise. Nobody gets 100%. We used to say, if everybody walked away a little unhappy, we did a good job.
Right. It must have been a good deal.
And I also say this, and I know this is the same in Philadelphia, that even if the business community is predominantly Republican, they love the city. And they are rooting for the Democratic mayor because they know that mayor is trying to help. There's an alignment of interest. You want to create jobs, grow your city, make it healthy. And you have no choice but to create a big tent if you're trying to govern a city.
I
All that goes out the window in Washington.
I rarely had. I can't think of a business person, in Philadelphia in my time. I was, 08 to 16, and the president, of course, was 9 to 17. I never had a Democrat or Republican conversation with a local business person. Right? They want lower taxes, high output. They want to be safe. Right? They want employees to be safe. They want basically the government to leave them alone. And so it was never a D or R kind of discussion. It was like we would just want the place to work.
They wanted to work.
We want to recruit staff. We want to grow. We want to do our thing. And so, state and federal, that's like a whole. That's it's a different, kind of level. But you're right. The closeness to the people. The executive position, mayor, governor, president. And, for us, of course, it was, Harrisburg and DC and, Illinois has, the state capital. But I mean, there is something about that closeness to people.
It's a constant reminder of why you're there.
What are you there for? What are you doing?
And also, you don't have the same special interest groups that have unlimited resources pushing their agenda. That doesn't supersede the interests of the people. They hold you much more accountable, I think, at a local level than in Congress.
People want to be safe. You mentioned earlier, they want to send their kids to school, get a good education. They want them to come home, when the school day is done.
Yes,
alive. People want to work. People want to work. Nobody wants to be poor. Poor people don't want to be poor. No one wants to be poor, right? People want to work. They want a job, good opportunity, decent wage, be treated well. And you want some vibrancy to the place. What's happening in the daytime? What's the nightlife? What can I come here and have some fun again and be safe, right? I learned. You talked about Mayor Daley. I spent time with Mayor Daley as I was coming into office, which is what inspired me to talk about sustainability and the greening of Philadelphia, because I saw what he did in the city of Chicago. But also, it's about systems. It's about reform. The place has to work. The bottom line. And I still tell people all the time. I was fortunate. 7 of my 8 years as mayor, President Obama was president. I got to work with you and David and Elias. I mean, the level of relationship. I tell people the story from time to time. I don't know. One day, you and I were in conversation, and a little bit of tongue in cheek. I said, Valerie, I have a daytime job, right?
I remember.
Like
I remember that.
I actually
I asked a lot of you.
Don't work for y'all.
But you know what? The reason why you kept getting all those invitations to the White House at a moment's notice, and I knew you'd come because you were kind of close. It was different when we would call
just down the street.
Mayors of San Francisco or LA. You were right there.
Yeah.
But it was because your city worked. You got it. And it was really important to the president that he have your advice and counsel, because he also, starting as a community organizer, understood our cities are the economic engine of the country, and nobody has a better pulse of what's happening in the cities than our nation's mayors. Since you'll remember, he went to the U.S. Conference of Mayors while he was still running for office. It was down in Miami. I remember it so vividly because everything he said were all of the reasons why I never wanted to work for the federal government, because of my experience at local government. And I kept thinking, like, why do we have to tailor our programs to meet them? Why aren't they tailoring them to meet us? And why can't they take a holistic and place-based approach? And so he wanted that input as he was making decisions, which is why you kept getting all those invitations.
You and the president and the whole team made it very, very clear that cities were important. That's where activity was going to take place. You had all those cabinet secretaries, out all over the place. I had every cabinet secretary, with the exception of Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense, had one or more press conferences in Philadelphia. And it was just amazing. And so that partnership, that relationship, that connection, and that bond between the federal government and local government was very, very strong. I think, this is my opinion, you don't have to respond. I think it was damaged severely after you all left. And you talk about, build back better. President Biden and his team, have to literally, in some instances, reconstruct what you all had created during those times, because cities were in the wilderness from 17 to 21, and now we're in the midst of still a worldwide pandemic. I mean, I know that different cities and states are changing their protocols and but I think this thing is not exactly over. I think we're trying to. I think we're trying to. Some people are, trying to move on, and okay, fine. This idea that we have to learn to live with it, but the need for strong leadership now more than ever, and I think it's tougher now. I think these are even more difficult times. So give us some of your perspective on that. I mean, you get to see the whole field, the whole country, and the world from your seat. What are you seeing out there?
Well, look, I think that this pandemic has laid bare some systemic challenges that have been there for a long time that were just exacerbated.
Right.
Healthcare disparities, which is part of why it was so important to us to pass the Affordable Care Act.
Right.
We know health outcomes, comorbidities are far worse in poor communities and communities of color. Yep. And now if you look at the death rate from the COVID-19, it bears out.
Yeah.
More Black people are dying proportionately, and they have from diabetes to hypertension to asthma to heart disease, all of which exacerbates this illness. You look at the economy for women, for example. We were just beginning to make some real progress in the workforce. And because women still bear primary responsibility for children, and because children were out of school appropriately for so long, that many women just dropped out of the workforce. They simply had nowhere to send their children if they couldn't go to school, and somebody had to stay home. And in many cases, women did. Businesses that were already fragile, and we know small businesses employ half of the workforce in our country, but many of them closed their doors. Again, businesses that were fragile and communities of color more likely to go out of business, lose access to capital. And so this, in a sense, the curtain has been pulled back, and everybody has seen what existed for so long. And then on top of the COVID-19, you had the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, far too many to count, but all of whom should be remembered.
Yes.
And the impact is that people are feeling traumatized.
Yes.
And you need leaders at a time like this that I think are pulling us together and not separating us. And it's more challenging for another reason, which I always like to say to young people, because it makes me seem old to say, well, when I grew up, you know, what Walter Cronkite said on the evening news, you knew to the gospel, right? Now we select the feed, our friends, the information, who we associate with.
Right.
And it is easy to stay in that little echo chamber. And part of what's wonderful about being in college or graduate school is you're in a pretty safe environment to have conversations that are uncomfortable, because the rules can be set and the table can be set ahead of time. This is what we're going to really try to grapple with. And the intellectual and emotional curiosity is fostered in a way that it just isn't in the rest of the world right now. And so it's really hard to meet people where they are when they have their heads down looking in this device. And that's changed since President Obama first started running for office. I mean, our campaign was boots on the ground. It wasn't virtual. We weren't doing Zoom. We were, you know, touching people and hugging them and being in their living rooms and being present in their lives. And that's really much harder to do.
And
the rhetoric has gotten
it's
harsher.
It's funny you mentioned so I you know, I teach at I'm also a faculty member at Columbia University, and Wednesday is my teaching day. So literally in class yesterday, I made mention of Walter Cronkite, and that for our generation, you know, your local news generally came on at 6 o'clock, and you heard, you know, what happened, and then you just waited, whether it was Walter Cronkite or Huntley, Brinkley, or Roger Mudd. I mean, all these names, right? And at 6:30, you had to wait. And then these people came on TV on ABC, NBC, CBS. And then they told you what happened. They told you what happened in the last 24 hours from yesterday when they were on TV. And then that was it. Right. And then
they had all day to get it right.
Right. And then the game show came on, and you know, and then you watched 11 o'clock.
Right. You're so right. And I'll say one other thing, which is we don't have today, is back then the news was the loss leader. No one was making money on advertisements on the news.
Right.
And so you weren't trying to, you know, catch eyeballs. You were just trying to inform people.
Right.
And there was not a blurring of the lines, which we see today between news and information, editorial and entertainment. And it wasn't like, well, one side says this and another side says that.
Right.
Get out of the way and watch a food fight. It was here's what happened.
There were facts.
One set of facts.
Right. So what is 4 years ago, 5 years ago? We heard the first this term alternative facts, right?
I do remember that. Yes.
I said, what? What does that mean? What are you talking about? Alternative facts.
And what it can lead to, which is what terrifies me about our democracy. I mean, one of the things that holds the United States out when you ask from a global perspective, Michael, is we were always that beacon of hope, not of a perfect democracy, but far better than most. We took our Constitution seriously. We took the smooth and orderly transition of power seriously, which is why, regardless of the party, every president has always showed up for an inauguration. Even when you're smarting because you lost, you still show up because you're signaling to the American people that the democracy is more important than party. It's more important than politics. And it is intended to signal this unification, right? And when we see what happened January 6th, and you hear people describe that as an ordinary, you know, interacting with their government.
No.
We just can't let that stand. And if any other country behaved the way that we had people in America behaving at the Capitol, we would be the first to say anarchy.
Right.
An attempted coup. We would be pointing.
What's going on? Do we need to step in? Do we need to support? Blah, blah, right. So if you took that tape, if you take the tape of that day and just run the tape, you could run side by side some other country, and unless you recognize the Capitol, you wouldn't know where was where, which was which. Right. So I add that. So if you look at 2020, worldwide pandemic, fiscal distress, right? So even in our time, when we were both in government, in our positions, right, we didn't send out locally, we didn't send out a stay-at-home order. We didn't tell all the businesses to close and send the people home, right? I mean, there was a worldwide recession, but it was economic. This was health that then damaged the economy, sent people home. Some businesses have never opened, right? So that's number two. Then all the murders that you mentioned, and then, just things exploded with George Floyd. Because, look, for our audience, we've been talking about these issues for a long time. Again, we can go back to the young man in Florida. We can go Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown. I mean, that laundry list, that was during our time, right? And then the protests. But George Floyd, when people saw on their TV, on their tablet, on their phone, that a man knelt on a man's neck, killed a man, and you could see it. The folks were like, "Oh, is that what y'all been talking about?" Yeah, that's what we've been talking about, right? So then all the the protests, the violence, all of that, and the presidential election, all of which took place in 2020, and then in the 13th month, I would say the 13th month of 2020, we then had an insurrection in the United States of America.
It was a rough year.
Right. So
people are exhausted. They're just exhausted. And
I think for young people today,
mental illness is much more of a problem. Suicide rates are going up. People are really afraid right now. And
the K-12 children, I'm particularly concerned about.
Yes.
We can talk about, kids are resilient and this and the other thing. Yeah, sure they are. But there's no escaping that learning loss, trauma, damage, disconnection from their friends, from their teachers. I mean, that's all a part of their socialization, right?
Yes.
These young people, I mean, they are now experiencing, to a different extent, some of the same trauma that, my daughter, your daughter, experienced from 9/11, right? Libby was 6 years old, was a week into first grade. Right.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, we're under attack. Right. So this generation, they've had 2 worldwide economic crises, a pandemic, 9/11, and a series of other things. And so, the world has changed. This generation will talk about 2020 the way you and I talk about 1968.
Yes, and the way our parents talked about the Great Depression and World War II.
Yes.
I mean, it is. But I have to hasten to add, though, and I hope we'll get to this, but there are still kernels of great hope out there. And a lot of it rests with the young people who are the change we have been waiting for.
Yes.
And I met yesterday virtually with David Hogue, one of the organizers after the Parkland shooting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
David, was on TV all the time. He was a kid.
Yeah.
Really younger than all of you listening in. And, he's still trying, 5 years later, he's still determined to try to get Congress to take the most basic steps and encouraging the Biden administration to do the same and traveling around the country trying to get people to register to vote.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting. It's hard work.
Yeah, no, it is. All change is difficult. It is hard. But, I'm glad you made mention of these young people because, it would be so easy to despair, to wonder, like what they energize me all the time. I keep learning from them. They're not going to slow down. They're not going to stop. The way they deal with issues of race and gender and representation and identity and politics, they are not going to put up with some of the nonsense that we've seen in previous years. I mean, they will call you out like in a serious way, right? I'm excited about it.
But I mean, think about the largest single demonstration on one day we've ever had in our country was one that the Parkland kids organized, March for Our Lives. Black Lives Matter, our young people, and obviously it began after Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown, real demonstrations in Ferguson, encouraging our administration to do a pattern and practice investigation, which Eric Holder did, and found out, yes, in fact, there was a pattern and practice of discrimination there that led to some real results and tangible change. And as you well know, because you certainly participated, together with your former police chief, Chuck Ramsey,
21st century,
chaired our 21st century task force on policing to say, what are we going to do to reimagine how we should be keeping our communities safe? Because everybody should get to go home. Law enforcement should go home, and the residents should feel safe.
Absolutely.
And we have seen laid bare again challenges that always exist, but one other good thing I think that's happening is people are not suffering in silence anymore. And I had a colleague who will remain nameless, come in my office when we were still in the White House, and he closed the door, a white colleague, and he said, I just have to ask you, what is this talk everybody is talking about? So I explained to him that every Black parent tells their son and now their daughters, this is how you have to behave with the police. Doesn't matter if your white friends are, talking back, you better hold your hands at 10 and 2.
Right. Keep your tongue.
Ask permission before you move.
Bite your tongue. Yes, sir. No, sir.
And he said, well, why don't I know about this? And I said, because it's kind of embarrassing to have to say we have to raise our children differently. But now the good news is that a lot of that is out in the open. And I find on a series of corporate boards that from the boardroom to the demonstrations, people are saying, shouldn't we do better? And one of the reasons why I love running the Obama Center right now is our mission, simply put, is to inspire and empower and connect that next generation of leaders to go out and help force change. And it's never easy. It's always hard. It always takes longer than it should. And you just have to be resilient and pace yourself and recognize over the arc, that long arc of the moral universe. It's long, but it does point towards justice if you push. Nobody's going to change if you don't make them. They like the status quo.
No. Status quo is working for them.
Working really well.
Working, right? And here's the thing: if it was easy, it would have been done before.
Yes,
it's been done already, right? No. You have to make that change. And look, it's more times than not, it is incremental. I think there've been very few. We did one thing and that, it all changed, right? No. We're still building on, stuff from literally, 40, 50 years ago. We have made some progress. It's not enough. You got to keep pushing. And as and neither one of us is going anywhere anytime soon, but we're always building, for the future. We have to have that pipeline. We have to have that bench. And then, some of us, will gracefully get out of the way. Right?
Well, that's true too. You do have to get out of the way and make room for people to come at it through a very different lens. But to that point, Michael, one thing I always try to remind people in terms of how long change takes is I give as an example same-sex marriage. When President Obama took office in 2009, it was legal in 2 states. By the time the marriage equality decision was ruled upon by the Supreme Court in 2015, it had gone from 2 to 37 in the District of Columbia. Now, a lot of people will go, oh my gosh, that's a lot of change in almost 7 years. Wow. And I go, no. The people who are working on that have been working for decades.
Yes.
Trying to get that done. It felt like a thunderbolt.
Yeah.
Until you realize how long that state by state strategy took.
Yeah. No,
and what also happened, and I always ask law students this question particularly, what if that case had come before the Supreme Court 10 years earlier? Would they reach the same conclusion? And because there is this connection between law and culture and policy and politics.
The times
that we're in, which is why cases like, Plessy versus Ferguson get reversed. Right. And unfortunately, why I worry about Roe versus Wade. Yeah. Something that from my entire adult life, I've just assumed would be the law of the land because the Supreme Court ruled on it. Right. But the pendulum swings.
Yeah. No, and that is nerve-wracking, and that very easily could foreshadow a variety of other things.
Yes, and people are beginning now in a way that I don't think they did sufficiently before. Appreciate, yes, it's important to demonstrate. You also have to vote.
Yes.
Because the people who get elected make decisions like appointing people to the Supreme Court that are going to affect your life.
Sure.
Like who are the prosecutors? That affects your life. Who's in law enforcement? That affects your life.
I try to help young people understand that, there's never been an election that somebody didn't win.
That's right.
There are no vacancies, right? So somebody won, and that somebody got their people out more than somebody else, or whatever the case may be. And so not showing up is a vote for the other side. Now, look, there's only been one perfect public servant. That's Jesus. Everybody else, we have our issues, we have our challenges, right? So
you probably heard this. President Biden used to always say, "Don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to the alternative."
Right. It's always as compared to what, right? So I tell young people, you are not born officially until some elected or appointed official signs your birth certificate. You are not dead officially until some elected or appointed person signs your death certificate. And everything that happens in between those 2 points, somebody elected or appointed has an impact on your life. You may not see it. It may not be evident, but those street lights, the conditions of your roads, the trash got picked up or didn't, the snow got plowed or it didn't, you got your Social Security check or you didn't. All of those things are a function of somebody in your city hall, your capital, or Washington, D.C. That's the world.
You can get a vaccine that can save your life. That's government.
Hey, look, I got my 4 at-home COVID tests the other day. Right?
I'm waiting for mine to arrive. I don't know why they're not here yet. I ordered them the first day.
I ordered the first day too. I know somebody got theirs last week. Mine came just the other day. It's on the way. That's the government.
That's government.
Right? So, one of the most incredible things, and I can't see our host, but if there are some questions, please let us know. Over the years, of course, folks have been chasing after. We got to get rid of that Obamacare, and I would laugh, and you hear these discussions, and people would say, now, the Affordable Care Act. I like some of that, but we got to get rid of that Obamacare. Really? Really? Is that where we are? Okay.
I saw some polling. This is before it even passed.
Crazy.
And it was a polling of senior citizens, and they said, keep government out of our Medicare.
Right.
Come on now. And I think we need to do a better job of teaching
from the other, right? Keep the government out of our Medicare. Okay.
Keep the government out of our Medicare. It's working really well. Stay away from it. Well, you know what? For those of you who may not know, the government runs the Medicare program.
Exactly.
But people don't. And and I have to tell you, Mike, I'll confess to you. Maybe I said this to you before, but when I was practicing law before I moved to the public sector,
Yeah.
I didn't know who my alderman was. I didn't even know how many aldermen there were. I didn't know who picked up the garbage, who trimmed the trees, how are the police funded, how are the schools and the parks. I had no idea. I took it for granted.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. We have got to do a better job of educating young people about how government at all level works, because then they could see the nexus between that and their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you wake up in the morning, turn on the lights. Now that's probably a private company. Okay, fine. You turn that spigot, you want to brush your teeth, take a shower. That's the water department.
That's
you go
exactly
outside, drive your car, condition of the roads, that's the street department. The traffic signal, that's the traffic division. The light comes on at night on your block, that's somebody else. You want to build a building, you need you want to put something on your porch, on the back of your house. All of these things, we take them for granted. It's the day-to-day grind and the expectation that when I put my can out on Monday, somewhere in the course of that day, somebody's going to come along and they're going to empty the trash and put my can back near the spot where I put it. Right?
It's not magic. Right. It's not magic. It's
I didn't see them do it. But that's my expectation every Monday. That's my trash day. Been the same for 40 plus years. We've had 5 mayors, including myself, since then. Monday is a trash day in my neighborhood, right? Nobody changed it, and it's not going to change, right? So it's just, tell us a little bit more about the work of the foundation, what you're doing, kind of what the president and first lady are up to, and just where are things?
Sure. So last fall, we broke ground on a 19.3 acre campus right next to the University of Chicago, just east of the campus, adjacent to the University of Chicago and the Museum of Science and Industry, and magnificent view of downtown, 10-minute drive on Lakeshore Drive.
Right.
And if you drive around the site today, you will see we're going to be coming out of the ground soon. So we've been putting in caissons and getting the site ready to go. And it will contain the library, which is a museum. So you can go through and see the story of the Obama presidency, beginning long before he became president. He used to always say, had there not been a Harold Washington, there may not have been a President Barack Obama. And so kind of whose shoulders we stand is where it will begin. Right. And we are also naming rooms and gardens and facilities after people upon whose shoulders we stand. So Harold Washington, Mae Jemison, Tim Black, who's a local leader here in Chicago, Hadia Pendleton, a young woman, 15-year-old, who was shot in Chicago, who had performed in the inaugural festivities, and she was shot and killed 9 days later, a mile from where both the Obamas and we live on the same block in Chicago, a mile from our homes. And so that's how the center begins. And then it'll tell the story of both President and Mrs. Obama. And hopefully by the end of that, you feel inspired to go do something. We want to empower you, so you don't just learn about the history, but you feel like, okay, there's something I can do. We'll have a forum building for gathering people from around the world to come and discuss some of the challenges that we face as a city, as a nation, as a world. We'll have an athletic facility. There'll be a vegetable garden similar to what Mrs. Obama had at the White House. We'll have walking trails and sledding trails and picnic tables, and it's open to the campus will feel open to the community, which was very important to both Obamas. She grew up not far from here. And then we have a few programs I would mention. One that obviously you are on the advisory board for, My Brother's Keeper, that was created. And as we come up on the 10th anniversary of the killing of Trayvon Martin, it's excruciating to think back to what President Obama said, which is if he had a son, he looked like Trayvon. And the intent was to humanize what happened to that young man simply walking down the street trying to go home. And when the Zimmerman verdict came through and exonerated him from this, President Obama, I will never forget, he went down to the briefing room in the White House, tears in his eyes. He said, we got to do better. We got to do some soul searching and figure out what can we do to improve the trajectory of the lives of boys and young men of color. And out of that, we created this hollow of government and partnership effort called My Brother's Keeper,
Yep.
to look at 6 key moments along the lives of these boys and young men where if we intervene, we can improve their outcomes. And to do that as partnerships so that it's not just us, it's the business community, the not-for-profit, local elected officials all over the country. And then out of that also came our effort on policing, where President Obama called on the nation's mayors just a couple of years ago and said, why don't you do an exercise to look at your use of force with the community and come up with some best practices, harkening back to that 21st century report.
Yeah.
We also have leadership initiatives in Asia, in Europe, and in Africa, and we'll be launching domestic ones this year. We have a Girls Opportunity Alliance near and dear to Michelle Obama's heart, again, helping primarily adolescent girls get a better shot. In fact, just yesterday in Hawaii, Michelle Obama had an event with a group of young girls, and she sent me a note afterwards and said, we're in good hands. They're going to change the world. It's going to be okay.
Good. I've had a few of the...
And we're going deep here in Chicago. And the final thing I would just add, which I think, Michael, I know will resonate with you, is we're spending all in about $700 million on this campus. Wow. We want to make sure that the people who work there and the contracts that are let reflect the neighborhood in which we are building. And so hiring people from the west and south side of Chicago, ensuring that the contracts are going to Black and Latino-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. We can't just talk about inclusion and diversity being a strength. We have to walk the walk too, and we intend to do that. We are doing that.
Good. I would mention to you, I've had a couple of the Obama scholars in my classes at Columbia.
We have them both at the University of Chicago and at Columbia. We got to get you in front of our ones at the U of C as well.
I would love that.
Amazing young people, the future leaders.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed. I've always enjoyed the Obama scholars in my class, and they do the work, and they just bring a wonderful perspective to it all. We have Jody has given us at least one question. Coming on, both of us have talked about the importance of local government and the need to, of course, listen to our constituents. And in your words, Valerie, regardless of the volume of their voice, which people tend to kind of shout, we're seeing this play out local school boards and a volatility and a rhetoric and an angst around mask mandates and critical race theory, and which that could take you down a whole different kind of rabbit hole. But I think that's called American history. But
Black history is American history.
Right, exactly. But the real question is talking about how to develop those skills to keep your patience, stay calm in these moments of volatility. I had a few, you had more than me, and you all had even more serious national and worldwide issues to grapple with. How do you keep your head about yourself in those moments?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think, look, you got to take two things. I would say, put yourself in a historical context and say, as hard as things are for us, they were much harder for the people who fought in order for us to have the rights and privileges we do.
Yep. And
so in a sense, you're paying it forward by saying, okay, somebody should be standing on my shoulders. I better be strong and do the best I can and try to, I'm mixing all kinds of metaphors, but while you have the baton, run with it as hard and as fast as you can.
Right.
And recognize that you have to take the long view, which means that there are going to be zigs and zags and backwards and forwards and the resilience that you need to replenish yourself is a good life lesson to learn early, because anything that is transformative is hard, because as we said earlier, people don't transform easily. It takes hard work and it takes strong legs and it takes a determination and grit and humor and love around you, surrounding yourself with people who will nurture you so that you can face these challenges. And I guess the final kind of history lesson I would give the audience is,
Yeah.
One year for my birthday, President Obama gave me a framed copy of the Petition for Universal Suffrage, which was signed in 1866. Very cool.
Nice.
So, framed next to a copy of the resolution that was introduced into Congress in 1919 to amend the Constitution to give women the right to vote.
Right.
53 years.
Yeah.
And the women who engaged in hunger strikes and demonstrations and were incarcerated and whose husbands left them back in the mid 1800s, they didn't live to see the 19th Amendment. But hey, guess what? It would never have passed without their effort. Right. And I think we have to have the humility to recognize that we may not get the thunderbolt on our watch, but history will look kindly upon us if we do the work.
Right.
Do the work. Work the problem. And that's what we're expecting from all of you.
Absolutely.
Do the work.
Absolutely. Just do the work. Do the work. Don't worry about the credit.
Do the work.
Get success. And you will improve. And that's the beauty. And I've got a note here. I know we're getting ready to close out, but for me, that's always the beauty of public service, regardless of level.
Yes.
The opportunity to have a positive impact on someone else's life.
Yes.
You may or may not ever meet that person.
Right?
You can't
but
spend
Michael, can we agree it's hard? It's hard work.
It's hard work. It's hard work. It's not for the faint of heart. But
it is not for the faint of heart. Get
Valerie,
a tough skin.
You. Thank you. Yeah.
Good to see you, Michael. Good luck, everybody. It's great to be with you. Back to you, Michelle.
Come on and close us out. Thank you, Michelle.
Absolutely. Thank you both very much, Mayor Michael Nutter and Valerie Jarrett. Such a wealth of information, so much history. I know I could spend the next hour listening to the both of you because there's just so much for us to learn. And we appreciate your presence, and your advice is very well taken by all of our students who are listening in. Just do the work, and it absolutely is hard work. So I want to thank you both for being a part of our celebration here at the Harris School for Black History Month. With that, I will end, and I will say that next week we will close out with the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss Jr. from Trinity United Baptist Church, and he's going to really close out the month and talk about love and justice and how do we look toward the future. It has been an amazing month, and I can't wait until we're all back together in the Keller Center to be able to have these conversations. I will say that next week's event actually will be in person. So if you both are in town, by all means, come and have fellowship with us and Reverend Otis next week. With that, I will say good night and thank you both very much.
Good night, everybody.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Michael.
See you, Valerie.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.